I think we got the best fans in the league. The Arrowhead carries the torch for being the best fans in the league. Some of the loudest ones and the most fun ones. So
The atmosphere, the fan base, the support groups had an impact on our season.
This fan base is dialed in.
Like I'm gassing you guys up and gassing up the state of Utah, but it's the truth. You guys have one of the best fan supporter groups.
I'm going home to play for my hometown team. Looking back to when I was 10 years old, that's every kid's dream.
Welcome to another episode of the Arrowhead Podcast. We are your official podcast of the official support group of the Archers Lacrosse Club. And again, apologies, folks. It has been a while. We are so irregular in our schedules right now, and partly due to me. Homecoming weekend happened, which was absolutely bonkers getting ready for that. And then I promptly took off out of the country for a few weeks. So we are back and we are ready to talk what's happened over the last few weeks. And a lot has happened. So, gents, May first weekend of the season, we are there in Salt Lake City, or here in Salt Lake City, watching the Archers open the season. Give us your takes on it, Toasty and Brady. I know Toast, you and I were there. Give us your takes on what happened.
I mean, man, it's been a roller coaster the last few weeks. It's we've been seeing a little bit of everything, but going back to the homecoming weekend, first of all, it was awesome to be home for the first games. What a great place to start it. There's no place like Utah. The fans were out. We were excited. It was loud. It was also great. Me and James beforehand, we got to interview Mike Rabel and kind of talk about preseason, what the thoughts are, the storylines. It was awesome. So we'll get into the games here in a second, but just overall, the vibes were great. It was great to have everybody there for the homecoming weekend.
Yeah. What were your takes on that, Mike Rabel? It feels like forever ago that we sat down with him. And Mike, thank you for taking the time. I know it was a busy weekend. He had a film crew with him, to sit down with us and just take 10 minutes before everything kicked off to really have a conversation. What was your takeaway from that convo, Toast?
The first thing I got was just total appreciation for Utah, the fans, the venue, the sponsors out here. Utah has definitely been a special place for the PLL, and it's very apparent in the way that Mike talks about it. It just seems like it's such a great place for lacrosse right now. Anybody that's involved in any sort of lacrosse here in the state knows how special it is and how much it's been growing. It's crazy. You can talk to people who don't even know lacrosse, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just been blowing up, So it's really cool, and we've got an awesome fan base, and so that was honestly the biggest thing that I took away from it was just that they're very high on Utah, and for good reason.
Yeah, I got the sense that Utah's not only a place they love to come play, but a place that they really hold high is hey, there's a big future here for not just the Archers, but the PLL in general. There's huge partnerships here. They know the state's behind them. They're not fighting. Really, I mean, they got the Jazz, but they're not really fighting, and the hockey team now. But it's not like they're fighting other teams. It feels like there's a camaraderie here. That the teams here get together, the hockey guys were there, and it feels like they see Utah as a place to really be able to cement the PLL as a professional league, which was awesome. So, Brady, your takeaways from homecoming weekend?
Yeah, I think I'm going to summarize my thoughts with, Bates is coming in, Coach Bates is coming in with a different strategy this year, and we're seeing how that's playing out. And we'll talk about week 3, in just a sec, but I think one of the biggest things for me was okay, we had this really kind of this flat opener almost, in that game opener against the Redwoods. And I was kind of as fans, I think we overreact a lot. So I was oh, freak, we had the number 1 overall pick and we scored 5 points, and so there's a part of me that's really washed up about it. And then I'm and then we play Denver tomorrow, and those guys have 5 Tewaaraton winners, and we did great against Denver, and it was a gutsy game. We ended up pulling out the win, which I'm really glad about because last year I was sitting next to Denver fans in our own freaking stadium, and they were heckling the entire time. It sucked so bad. and they were like from Maple Mountain, so it was even worse. And that's like the high school that's like, they're in the city that I live in, but they're like the rival of the team I coached growing up. So I'm like, not only are they Denver fans, but they're Maple Mountain people. It's Justin Anderson's family, and Justin Anderson's like the nicest guy, and I'm sure his family's nice, but when you're an Archer fan, it's the worst. So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, I was just a total tangent, but I'm happy that we beat Denver. Um, and I don't know, it's kind of been like Austin said, a roller coaster, seeing the offense do pretty well, the offense kind of sputter, and then, and so I've had mixed feelings about this new setup, about the four defensive middies going out there, and I love all our D mids because they're all legit. But then there's also like, okay, but defensive middies have a role, and are we asking them to do more than some of their role,
Yeah.
But this week was a good week to see some of the vision that Coach Bates has, and see how it plays out. So that's kind of my thoughts on opening weekend. It's kind of like I'm still getting data, and I'm kind of on the fence still about some of these things.
Yeah, for sure. So opening weekend, I mean, it was a crazy time, right? I mean, we've got NLL still happening.
Yeah.
Half our guys missing. Nick Washuta starting in goal. We have Ryan Steins because the Utes didn't make it. We don't have our first round picks. He's still playing college ball. And so it's just kind of like this weird roster match, and everybody's talking about it, right? Of like who's in, who's out. Jared Bernhard is literally the night before getting on a plane to fly to Utah, like 11 o'clock at night. They release their roster, being like, oh, by the way, Jared Bernhard's on our roster for this weekend. Everybody else releases their roster like 3 or 4 days early.
Mhm.
Anyway, it was a weird time with rostering. Along as well as here locally, right? We have our IM Lax, our rec league. That's their final games on that Saturday. So I'm running to coach. I'm running to games on Friday night, going to coach on Saturday morning, running the games Saturday. Like it was just like lacrosse craziness for like 3 days, and it was amazing. I think Toast, you talked about the crowd. Like we had, people were so mad at us. We're sitting in our section, and everybody got a vuvuzela. So if you weren't there, the vuvuzelas were the big horns that you blow. We got
Oh,
10
yeah.
of those last year. The league helped us get 10 of those last year for our supporter group section, section 7, best section in the house. And we were blowing like 10 of those last year, and it was awesome. Got such good noise. Then they gave one to everybody. And it was like almost like too much. I
Yeah.
love the idea. I love the thought of it. And people around us like, whose stupid idea was it to get these things? And I'm like, that was mine. So sorry about that. So hands up. I started that 2 years ago. That is my bad. But like day 2, it felt like a lot of the parents like, hey, we're gonna forget our kids' vuvuzela at home. And so it was like a spattering of them around, and that was like just enough. Like there was enough of them to cause that. So game 1,
Day 2 was
Toast,
much better for
day 2 is
sure.
much better. Day 1, we obviously, like you said, Brady, we lose to the Redwoods, and we had lost the 2 games prior, when they were here in the year
Yeah.
before. So now we're on like a 3-game losing streak in Utah, which didn't feel great. Toast, give us your thoughts on that game.
Yeah, it was our main concern coming into the year was offense. We've been plagued with injuries the last 2 years, and it's like such key guys going down. You've got 3 starters alone in Matt Moore, Tom Schreiber, Grant Ament. It's like you've got 3 star players gone, and so that was our biggest concern, and that was the concern in that game, unfortunately. There were some bright spots, like CK Giancola is freaking awesome. He's got one of the nastiest shots I've seen in a player. D3 guy. I wanted to give a shout out to him. And then Steins, I thought was also a bright spot in that game. Like
Yeah.
I'm very high on Steins. Um, but it definitely felt like first game we're figuring this out. A lot of new faces. The chemistry wasn't quite there yet. And so that was the frustrating part. It's like, okay, this was our biggest concern, and this is exactly what we're seeing. Other bright spots were our defense in that first game, and we'll talk about this in all the games, has been unbelievably good.
Yeah.
The defense has been arguably the best defense we've ever had. one of the best defenses maybe in the PLL history. It's been awesome to watch. And Washuta stepped in and looked like not only like a regular starter in this league, but like a star in this league, frankly. Tubbs came in, and like you could tell he wanted to prove that, and he did. And he had a monstrous 2 weeks, especially in that second game, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, certainly some hype, and even I think for me too, like Sisselberger was back,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
went like 50% against TD Ellen, who's also a really good face-off guy.
Yeah.
And that was his first game back, and it was like nice to see us winning face-offs because we
Yeah.
didn't have that last year either. And so that was really good to see. But again, I'm with you. Like it was kind of on the defense played good, lots of turnovers. We had that question mark of Haas is retiring basically. He's not playing this year. Well, who's going to fill the gap? And it felt like we didn't skip a beat.
Yeah.
It was great. Brady, what you
Yeah.
got?
I just, we've been drafting mostly defensively. And I think there's a part of me that's always like, why? I come from an offensive guy, but at the same time, it's really paid off too, and we don't always go for like the sexiest draft picks, but having the best defense in the league and also just looking at that core and everyone is incredibly young, and like who is the oldest player on that defense? Is it Piper? Like,
It's got to be Jeffrey now.
okay,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, yeah. But like other
But
than that,
outside of Jeffrey, it's all young. It's all
yeah,
like maybe
Piper's,
third year guys.
yeah. So it's and that makes me really excited to be honest. And our defensive middies they're a weapon and they're really athletic. And we definitely have the best, D middies in the league, and especially that crew, that whole lineup. So um I've just seen like some of the dividends on there. And, we've had injuries on the offensive end, but I've also seen us gel a lot more with some of the younger core of offensive players, especially this weekend, which is really cool
Yeah.
to watch. So, and we'll get into that more. I have
Yeah.
a ton of glazing to do over several guys, but
So game 2, we roll in Denver. We just come off a loss. We've got Denver, who they're our rivals. Again, it was actually great to see Brady. Like we had Denver supporters around us last year. I'm not gonna lie, we gave people a bit of a hard time this year when they were showing up wearing Denver gear. Like I knew a couple of kids who I coached the day before wearing O'Neal jerseys. Every time they walked past, we booed them. We gave them a hard time. The next day, they showed up wearing Archers gear. So props to those kids. But there were some kids wearing Denver jerseys, and we kept saying to them like, "Hey, you're in the home supporter section. Like you're gonna hear it from us the whole game." They went and sat somewhere else for that game. It's like that's a win for us. I'll take that. But we start off that game face off. It's literally, I just looked it up, 6 seconds. Jared Bernhardt scores. Not supposed to be on the roster. All of a sudden he shows up, scores, and we're like, are you freaking kidding me?
yeah.
This is how it's gonna go. But then it was just like a defensive masterclass, and Tubbs just, I don't know what it was, but it looked like he must have been looking like every shot from Brendan O'Neal must have looked like a beach ball coming at him because he was not missing it. And it was amazing. And I think every time we got a stop, the whole like ESPN, like he quieted the crowd. I feel like we quieted down Brendan O'Neal. We booed him every time he got the ball, and our defense, it felt like they rose to that. They were like, we're not going to let him quiet the crowd this time. And they played so heavy on him. And like I say, Tubbs saw the ball, and they even tried to give him the goal off of Mason Woodward when Mason, put his manhood on the line, and we still stopped that ball going over the line.
Yeah.
And it's like he could not get a goal. And he finally got that 2-point on like a man up, which that was for
That
the refs.
2-point was gnarly.
But that man up should never have been a man up. We'll talk about that. But it was like, but it felt like that game was like a turning point where the team was like, come hell or high water, we are going to win this game.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to stop us. And we are and it felt like they were carrying that like for a year of the whole Brendan O'Neal quieted the crowd in Utah. Brendan O'Neal quiet. And they're like, you know what? We're going to shut him down. And it was epic to see that. And I think that just got the crowd going. And we were so amped. And it was just like, that was probably one of the funnest games I remember being at as an Archers fan. To be able to be like, we just beat our rival. And we could, say Denver sucks. And we were beating them. Like, that was amazing. You know what I mean? Like, it felt really good. What do you guys
It was
think?
the exact game that we needed, honestly, against them. It was awesome. It was like shutting them down. The offense did honestly just enough. Like did enough. They had it, they figured it out, and it just felt like we were the hungrier team. You could tell we wanted it really badly. That was a game that everybody um, went all out for us. It was such a fun game, such a great way to end the weekend. The fans were into it. Like it was kind of like everything that you wanted in that game was great. So very very happy with that Denver game.
Brady, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's fun because Brendan O'Neill is a phenomenal player. You know, that guy is, and I don't like dislike him. I just hate that he plays for the Outlaws. But I think it speaks not just to us, shutting him down, but they have Jared on the other side. And their roster is just so loaded of offensive talent. I just think it goes to show how strong of a defense we do have. Because looking at that roster or the Denver's offensive side of the ball, it's just, man, I'm just excited to watch this defense play more and to see what they did to Denver and seeing what they've been doing to teams. So that's mainly my thoughts is just kind of over the defense.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm just gonna leave this as a bookend to this, talk about Denver. Um, our backup goalie in that game had a better save percentage than their goalie of the year goalie. So I don't know what that says what comes to the end of the year, but hopefully they remember that stat. All right. So then we went on a break for 2 weeks, kind of dealing with this preseason stuff. We had you play 2 games, you get your bye week, and then the league had a bye week,
It
and
was
then we're
like
back.
it was like 3 total weeks without playing.
Yeah, it was a crazy amount of time. So, Toast, what do you think that was like? I mean, coming in for the team, like you're armed up, you start the season, boom, you go out, then I'm on a break again.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part about this league is you get so little time to practice and play with your guys. It's so different from college ball where college you're practicing and seeing each other every single day. The PLL, just the way the league is right now, the way it has to be is just you see guys maybe like a day or two before, and then it's just like a few practices here and there, but before that. So it's so hard to get that chemistry, and especially if you're in our situation where you're kind of having to rebuild your offense and kind of revamping your whole strategy, that's really hard to do. And so um you can tell like there's still quite a bit of rust to shake off, still things that we were figuring out. And yeah, 3 weeks is a long time. And the other thing about this league is guys have to keep themselves accountable, right? Like it's not like you're holding practices every week. It's a lot of these guys are working and having to figure out ways to practice on their own, to work out on their own, to get those reps in. I think I don't know if you saw the video of Piper Bond wearing like full work outfit and he's doing wall ball. Like, it's
Yep.
just that's the way it is. And so it's the 3 weeks is a long time without playing. It's almost I'm almost saying it's an advantage for teams who play back to back because they get that second chance. And I think you're seeing that this year. If teams have been actually playing a lot better in those second games,
Yeah.
because it seems like they've had a chance to kind of work some kinks out.
Yeah. Well, and Brady, talk to us about this too, like your thoughts on people had started to come back into the league. And so teams had like 2 games now and their roster had already changed.
Yeah.
We got our guys back, but we played 2 games back to back in Utah with a roster. And then we're heading into Maryland, Baltimore with really a completely different roster. Give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think we're in a different position than most of the other teams in the league because we have an injury bug, mainly on the offensive side is what I'm referring to. Like, and even this last week, we still haven't seen Shribes or Amen or Matt Moore, And so I think we've seen a lot of guys coming in and out of the roster, and then we had Aiden McGuire jump in for his debut, and he's an animal. So I've never seen a short stick just manhandle, like the best attackman in college lacrosse. So There's
That crowbar call was so ridiculous.
So
Yeah.
bad,
It
so
went
bad.
viral, and I have to get on my soapbox and talk about how dumb of a call that was. Like I get
Yeah.
that the crowbar is illegal, but that was like one of the weakest. Like to me, it didn't feel like it was that much of a crowbar. It was really
Yeah.
just kind of him manhandling
I think
Spallina.
That's like watching seventh and eighth grade lacrosse when you got an eighth grader who's like 6'2",
Yeah,
and
it's
he
like
goes
like
against a seventh grader who hasn't hit puberty yet, and it just they outmuscle him, and then the ref's like, that has to be a flag.
it's just
No,
weight room. Like,
yeah,
come on, don't call that.
exactly.
when it comes down to like the breakdown of the crowbar, I think I understand the call when it takes a long time, right? Because then I think you would call him for a hold, technically, right? But with Aiden, it's not that way. It looked like he just knocked him over. It was so fast, you
It's
know?
like he just basically went underneath his arm and pushed
And just
him.
pushed him. Yeah. And I was like, where is that illegal in that's not illegal. I understand if you're holding somebody, you kind of
Yeah.
like turn their
And
shoulder
it
as they're
seems like
running.
most of the time it's like while it's on the run too. It's like when you're
Yeah.
on the run, you're trying to get underneath that
And you
arm,
kind of
and
turn
then
them and
you're like trying to
boom.
lean into it. But like they were just like he was just posting him up. He just went womp womp, pushed him out,
Yep.
and they
Well,
called it. It
and
was
you throw a
crazy.
flag for that, and you think in Utah, like I think it was the penalty. Like Ryan Stein's got his helmet basically lifted off his head, a pole
Yeah.
trying to do like an overhead check that
Oh,
basically
yeah.
like right up and under his chin, lifted him up, and nothing on that. And so you're like, you're gonna call a crowbar, but you're not gonna call a guy getting his head taken off. So it's a consistency thing for me too.
Yeah. So anyway, so Aiden's a champ, and it seemed just like one of those, in one way you could say, oh, it was a defensive battle. That's why it was a low scoring game. But you could also look at it and be like, our offense struggled too. And it could be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But we ended up falling short to the Whip Snakes. And that's also a team I hate losing.
Yeah. When um, you have what, I think JB is calling, and they're calling the ice cream games, right? You hold them under 10. This will be the second one this year. We held a team under 10 and lost.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like to your point, Toast, like defensively we're doing okay. But I think high points in that game, again, like Sisselberger was like 11 for 17. Great. Fields, he had 3 points. Like it feels like Connor Fields struggled a little bit last year. Feels
Yeah.
like he's kind of taking this leadership role on the offense, and he's doing the Connor Fields things that we saw a couple of years ago. And so to get Fieldsy firing is really great. So I think those were some high points for me. And then Dobson coming back in, I think it took him a minute to get going in that game, but he was 60%. Emmett Carroll was 70%. They had almost the same amount of saves, but, they had a lot more shots than we did. So it's definitely offensive struggles a little bit.
Are we still leading the league in turnovers? I knew we were leading into this past weekend, but I'm not sure if we are anymore. And I think that's been a frustrating thing to watch, is because I feel like we just feed it to the crease often, or
Yeah.
the ball dies in our stick or something. So those have been the two biggest things like I've noticed on offense. I'm not a professional coach though, so this is just my opinion as a fan.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that I think we kind of got back, and I sent a message out to the group chat. Is it okay if we move on to this past week?
Let's do
One
it.
thing I do
Nicola.
want to add real
Go for it,
quick.
Austin.
Yeah, just one thing I want to add real quick from the Whip Snakes game. After the game, there was quite a bit of discourse
Mhm.
about our number one overall pick, right?
Yeah.
We chose not to get Spallina. We
Yeah.
chose to get Aiden McGuire. And so it's like, our defense really wasn't the thing that we needed help with. It was really the offense that we needed help with, but we go and get McGuire instead of Spallina. And one thing I wanted to say to that, because there were so many people, and there still are people online saying like, the Archers should have gone with Spallina. Like, what are we doing? Why are we picking McGuire? One thing I'll say to that is I personally don't know how much Spallina would help with our offense, to be honest with you. I look on paper at our offense, and I don't know what changes I would make. On paper, everything kind of looks good to me. Like I can't point it to one person and be like, "Oh, this is the reason why our offense it hasn't been producing." Or it's because we have these people. Like you look at every single player and it's like any one of these players could go off and have an amazing game. And like obviously we could probably use some more help from our midfield, but also you look at some of the names in our midfield, and it's like in that Whipsnakes game we had Leclerc, we had Steins, we had Giancola, we had either Sam King or Ryan Amler. It's like which of those guys would you take out? I don't know which guy I would take out. I personally am high on all of those guys, and it's more of just like figuring out the offense internally rather than plugging in somebody new to figure it out. So that's my take on it. And Spallina to me is not like the guy on our offense that would necessarily fix everything. I'm very high on Spallina. I think Spallina is an amazing player, but I don't know if he's the type of player that you could just plug into our team and be like, yeah, he's gonna now we're scoring five more goals or 10 more goals a game. I don't know. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Well,
Yeah.
And
I was going to say,
Sorry.
you take, you look at sometimes our offense when they struggle. A lot of times it's somebody's got to beat their one-on-one matchup. You've got to be the guy. And Spallina is not necessarily that guy. He doesn't have a Jared Bernhardt speed. He doesn't have a Brendan O'Neill size, right? It's just like, it's not there. Like, he's not going to fit into an offense that way. And we have enough guys that can score. It felt like we just needed a guy who could beat that guy, win a
Spallina,
matchup.
he's found a perfect spot in that Whip Snakes offense, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's like a perfect third attackman role player that you need. Like he's a point machine. He'll get you tons of points, but it has to, but like to me, it's like if he's in a system with a lot of good players and players that can initiate and get things done, he's a perfect plug and play. And I don't know if our offense is the best thing for that. I think there would be so much pressure on him in our offense that I don't know how effective it would be personally.
Yeah.
I want to okay, the way I'm going to express myself right now is going to be like I'm going to express two sides of the coin at the same time, but I think I kind of understand the other fans' argument being like, why didn't we draft him? We struggled. But Austin, I really love your point here because I was thinking the same thing this morning as I was thinking about lacrosse, obviously, because that's what you do, I guess, in your free time. But and I thought the same thing. I think it really comes down to certain guys on our roster who are so skilled that had a rough year last year who are now stepping up to the plate this year. And when you look at like we do have a ton of talent, we also have injured players. And I'm like, yeah, we could have drafted number one. Also, at the same time, I almost feel like there's too many cooks in the kitchen too. Like we have, and so there's like this thing where it's like, oh yeah, you draft, a young player who's hungry and maybe they make a difference. But then also we have all these veteran players who have really big histories and really good. And that like Mac O'Keefe tied the single game goal scoring record this weekend. That was awesome. And then Connor Fields is the all-time leading scorer for the Archers, period. Right. And he also was at this weekend that he broke that record as well. So we have the players there. But like you said, Austin, it comes down to a few habits that we need to fix internally. I mean, I don't feel like we've played that true Archer lacrosse where we're passing the ball all over the place and quick ball movement in a while. And it was this weekend that I saw that for the first time in like 2 years almost.
Yeah, and another thing I'll add to that is, you have people that will overreact every week. And to be frank, if you had overreacted over those first 3 weeks, Mac O'Keefe probably wouldn't even played in that chaos game because I
Yeah.
think he only had 2 goals going in, and
Yeah.
it wasn't looking like he was going to fit the offense because he wasn't producing, and yet he goes completely nuclear against the chaos, 7 goals, and it's like, okay, that's the Mac that we're used to, and that's the Archers offense that we've been used to. So some of these times, sometimes I think it's okay to have a little bit of patience, especially when you already have guys that you can trust. And so that's kind of been my opinion. Is like it's been frustrating to watch this offense because we know what these guys can do. We know how these guys can play. So that's been my take.
It just kind of felt like, hey, we love these players. We're big fans of these players. But in the first couple of weeks, there's been a little bit of like, we had these expectations and we weren't meeting those expectations. And I think it comes with like just offensive habits and a group of really young players on the offensive end who are getting used to it. But I finally felt like we had a good chemistry this week.
Yeah.
And it was, oh my gosh. First of all, I'll be honest with you guys. When it comes to offensive players, I think one of my favorites is just like a gunslinger, you know? And Mac this week, I just love how smart he is in playing off ball. And there's so much lacrosse that happens before he just catches it and rips it. And I think people think sometimes Mac is just like a one trick pony or whatever. But I mean, I've seen him play in the NLL, and he's a champ there too. I mean, I don't know if he's an actual champion, but he's a good player there. And I loved watching him just go off and be smart off ball and set those off ball picks and slip things and just get open. It was just so fun to watch him. And then Fieldsy going off too. Really pumped with Sam King. He is really finding a good role for himself, and I loved watching that goal that he scored this last weekend. I watched that over and over again just because the amount of stick skill that you have to catch it and then underhand it, like backhanding as you're going down the left alley, was crazy to me. It was just so skilled and so fun to watch, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
And I
shout out
think
to those guys.
I think offensively too, you look at I'm just looking at the stat line for last week, or this weekend against the Chaos. Obviously, Mac had his 7 goals. Trey Leclerc 6 points, 2 goals, 4 assists.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a
Fieldsy,
quiet 6 points.
right. Fieldsy, 3 points, 2 goals, and assist. Ryan Ambler, 3 points, 3 assists. Like Ambler is producing this season better than he's produced the last year, really.
Yeah.
Ryan Steins continuing to as a rookie to produce 2 points, a goal, and an assist. Sam King, 1 goal. Pedersen, 1 goal. Leo Johnson, a goal. Like you look at the stat line there. I mean, like you say, Toast, Trey Leclerc, a quiet 6 points. Ryan Amber, 3 assists. Connor Fields, like you said, Brady, 2 goals comes to the most goals scored ever in Archer's history. Like these guys put together kind of a masterclass. You look at the assist line to the goal line, like that was team lacrosse.
That was Archer lacrosse. Anyway,
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't seen it as much of what the standard has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty worried going into this game because I was like,
Mhm.
we desperately need a bounce back. We need to show some life on this offense. Otherwise, I'm gonna be really worried about the rest of the year. And I was really worried too, because it's like, okay, we're going against the Chaos, who arguably have the second best defense and the
Yeah.
second best goalie. Shout out Dauber, shout out our defense.
Shout out, Blaze.
And yeah, and so I was just like, I was like, of course, this is the
Yeah.
week that we need to have a bounce back week, and we have to play this freaking Chaos defense. And like, man, it was just we just had it figured out. It was awesome. It was such a perfect game to watch. Like, okay, we're showing signs of life. This is a championship team. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm also really excited for the Chaos. Like we beat them and whatever, but they I feel like that's a team that's been through a lot of changes
Yeah.
and in some ways also stayed the same. Like you look at that defensive end and it looks the same as year one
Yeah.
and year two in the bubble, so that defensive end looks almost the same. But then they've gone through coaches and then they had a new coach last year. But I really like is it Dave Brooks? His first name Dave?
Steven.
What was that?
Steven Brooks.
Oh, Stephen Brooks. Sorry. So
No,
Stephen
he's a
is
good dude.
he's a good dude. I'm really excited for that chaos. All that Red Legion fan base should feel real good because I think that's a good change for them. And they have a young core. Ross Scott is crazy to watch. And I don't know. I'm just really excited for them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm excited to keep beating them.
Yeah, that
As,
too.
as Jackson would say, little brother. But like Josh was texting me, Josh from the Red Legion was texting me how frustrated he was, I think, at Blaze. Like he's not seeing anything low. And whether they figured that out as a weakness or just they knew once you get you get into a goalie's head, you make a couple, you just keep putting them there.
Can we talk about
Um,
Mac scoring really quick? Just
Yeah.
sorry, I don't mean it. Just that right off the first face off and Mac just sniping the corner out of nowhere in a low angle. Just when you talked about going low on Blaze, like
Yeah.
that was legit. And I think that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. And it was, again, it feels like that this was the game, like you said, Smarch is lacrosse.
Yeah.
We've known this is there, and it hasn't happened. And people have been on baits about choices and rosters and drafts, but it feels like this was a chance for him to be like, I got this. This is what I've been seeing. This is what I know we can do. And hopefully building it because it feels like, so we played 4 games this season. Ice cream game we lost, beat a region, a rival, right?
Yeah.
Ice cream game loss, beat what you consider a rival. It's like let's just do the off. Let's get done with losing the ice cream games and just win everything else because the defense is
Yeah.
hot. Like we haven't given up more than 10 points in a game this season.
Yeah, that's the thing is our defense is consistently elite, A1. And it's the question for the rest of the year is going to be, can our offense keep that? Like, can our offense show consistency? And I don't even think our offense needs to be elite. Like it would be amazing if they would, and I think that they have the potential to. But even if our offense can just get 10 plus a game, like we win most games.
Yeah. So, Toast, you talked a little bit about Leo Johnson to me on the phone the other day. Give us your take on Leo Johnson.
I loved having him in, man. Watching him, it felt like he did kind of breathe a little bit of life into the offense as well. We've been kind of missing like a speedy guy. We've normally had that with Ament or even with Moore. And so it was nice to see him out there and he was just ripping. So I think he only had like one goal, but he had some excellent looks, excellent looks. And so I loved seeing Johnson. I thought he was great. I'm very happy with, and honestly, all the offensive players. You looked at the stats earlier. It's like everybody was eating and everybody was producing. So I was really happy to see that even though Mac had 7 goals, it wasn't like it was just Mac. It was like we had a lot of guys that were producing and scoring. It was great.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question for you guys. I want to lead it with none of us are Chris Bates, but when we have our pup list shrink a little bit and we get Amit and Moore and Schreiber coming back in, obviously Schreiber always has his spot in the midfield, but when it comes to that attack line, we've been playing Ryan Steins, Sam King, and then we have Sam King's been coming out of the box. Sorry.
Yeah.
So we've been, Mac O'Keefe, Fieldsy, and Ryan Stein's kind of been those three this last week. And
It's been pretty
what are you guys'
fluid.
thoughts? Where do you think people are going to be plugged in? I guess like we could just wait and find out and see what happens, but
Yeah.
there's
I'll
also
say
like
I'm
an argument to let him grow, so.
I'll say I'm glad I don't have to make that decision.
I'm in the same boat. I'm looking at our roster and I'm like, if a couple of these guys come back, I have no idea what I would do. Like
Yeah.
that, you're gonna have to take out some really good players. Again, it's like,
Same
again,
thing with the argument
there's
with the
there's nothing on
drafting.
paper that I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, take this guy out. He's a bum. It's like, no, everybody is so good and
Yeah.
everybody has the potential to be right there. And so, and like it even hurts me to see that like Dyson Williams isn't playing.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Love
Dyson is
Dyson.
so freaking good. He's one of the best like inside crease junkies that's in the league. Like he has the potential to be like, like a Xander Dixon and yet he's not playing. And I don't know if that's an injury thing or just a lineup thing, but like it hurts me to not see him playing too. There's so
Yeah.
many good players. It's like it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just say I'm so grateful that we don't have to draft a veteran out of the player pool to make up our offense. So
Yes.
just don't have that problem.
Oh, seeing
Um,
Rambo in an Atlas jersey is so weird, man.
yeah. Anyway. No, I think you're right, Brady. That's going to be the big crazy decisions you got to make, right? And this is what I think when we talked at the beginning of the season about the rosters and that guys were just being pulled in. And it was a chance for some guys to be like, I'm going to make my name. And I feel like we've got some guys that have done that. They're like, yeah, you have no reason to drop me when these guys come back. Which is what you hope for as a player. And really as the league expands of like next guy up. And you don't see that drop off. And then you're like, hey, is the guy coming back? Does he have a spot? Where's my kind of like you talked about, Brady? Is this something to build for the future? Is this person they've got 10 years in front of them? Is this where I go? Like I think there's some really tough decisions you have to make. So
Yeah.
but good problems to have, right? Rather have that
Yeah.
problem than
Absolutely. Yeah. Then having nobody to step up or
Yeah.
step in, you just,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what way a lot of these teams go because the league, are we in year 8 now? Which seems crazy to
Mhm.
me that we're in year 8. I feel like we're in year 4 for some reason. Like
Yeah.
the league still feels so young to me. But year 8, a lot of those original guys and even some of those guys who were drafted in the first couple of years, they're going to be phasing out. And
Mhm.
and that's going to be a weird thing because, like I said, mentioning the chaos defense, that has stayed the same as long as I can remember. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to see certain parts of these teams starting to slowly phase out. And I feel like we've changed a lot as a team.
Yeah.
even from our championship run. So like we still have some of those elements and stuff, but we have a lot of young.
For sure.
It definitely feels like the defensemen have a much higher longevity than the offensive player. Offensive guys tend to get phased out pretty quick
Mhm.
versus I can name numerous defensive players that have played in the league for like 10 plus years and haven't dropped much in their production. It
Yeah.
definitely seems like offense is one of those trickier places where it's like you have to be pretty freaking good to be
Uh,
producing for a long
Well, and you
time.
take a beating on the offensive side. Like these
Yeah.
defensive guys are big guys and they throw hard hits and hard checks. They're not really facing that. So you take much bigger beating, I think, on the other side of the ball. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I also think there goes to show, like, I think of a guy like JT Giles Harris will probably play for a long time. And when he was drafted, I always put him in my fantasy lineup and he would just like never give me anything. And I think some defensive players can be phenomenal defensive players without acquiring so many stats. And I
Yeah.
think when you
Mhm.
look at it offensively, it's really hard to make an argument for an offensive player that not a lot of stats are showing up.
yeah.
So I think that's why, a lot of these, man, one of my favorite, one of my favorite archers of all time, Will Manny, right? Like incredible player, and was producing, but got phased out
Yeah.
just because so much. And there's also like an argument of like, hey, there's like it's so saturated with talent. Like, should we expand? That'd be legit. I've
And I
thought about
think,
this to try and correct the whole chaos thing so they can be on the East Coast and try and get like a full West Coast, East Coast thing. I've thought
Mhm.
about that, but that's probably a whole conversation for a whole nother podcast.
yeah.
But
Yeah. And I think expansion will come. And I think everybody wants to see that. But, you got to give credit to the Rabels for doing this the right way.
yeah, doing it
Um,
slowly. Yeah.
you got to make sure it's feasible to expand and you can afford to pay the players and there's the revenue there for them, and to be able to, because otherwise you just tank it and you lose the brand and it becomes, washed out. So,
Yeah.
all right, guys, that's a brief recap. I say brief, we're talking about like 45 minutes. But that's a recap of the last kind of few weeks. Feels like we're in like if we can continue on this like trajectory of what happened this last week and we can push forward with that, feels like great things will happen this season. We've also seen the downside, and so like keep that peak going and keep them improving. And it feels like if we can click like that, like we did this last weekend, like I posted on our Instagram, I just posted and said championship caliber. Like that was a championship caliber performance. Keep a team under 10, score 15, dominate the game in every stat line there is. Nobody can beat you at that point.
Hey, one thing I'll point out as well that I was looking at is, statistically, we've played the four hardest teams in the league. We've had the toughest schedule. I was looking at the standings. The three teams we have not played are all at the bottom of the standings.
Love
I
So
that.
I had a
I know that
question about
doesn't mean
that.
much because the parity in this league is insane. The bottom team could
Yeah.
be the team that's at the top any day, but it's still just kind of an interesting thing.
So I had a quick question. When it comes to the standings on the PLL app, it's interesting because I feel like previously the Eastern Conference has been the more dominant conference in the last 2 years, but this year it seems like that is flipped.
Definitely
But
feels that way.
I don't know if it's just an error or an update, or I'm not understanding why they're doing it, but like we beat the Outlaws. They're 2-2, and our score differential is 4,
Mm-hmm.
but we're ranked lower than them in the standing. Obviously, it's earlier, but we just beat the Chaos, and they're 3-2, and I think that's the biggest thing. But
Yeah.
their score differential is -5, and they're number 1.
Yeah,
So
it's the
it's like
wins.
but like, the Redwoods, I get why they're ahead of us because we beat them, or because they beat us, but we beat Denver. And so I think it's just early too, but I thought that was interesting that we were ranked last in the Western Conference,
Well,
despite having beat some of these teams.
it comes down to goal difference. It comes down to wins, losses, then goal difference. And
Yeah.
then
And then after that, I'm not sure what they go off of.
it's
Maybe
usually like goals for,
yeah, it's probably the case.
like number of goals
Okay.
you scored, like, and then it comes down, that's all even, then it comes down to head-to-head matchup. But I will say that, and this is the great thing, and talking to some of the players about the longest season, the thing they loved is, like last year, you lose 2 games, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But there's more games. And so you have more chance to come back and win and get things figured out. And so if we can go, like you said, Toast, we get some not necessarily easier matchups, but on paper should be. If we can go on a run now, 3, 4, 5 wins, then we're also jumping up,
Yeah.
we come back and see other teams lose, if Carolina loses a couple, Denver loses another one, California loses, all of a sudden we're jumping up that ranking pretty quick.
Looks
So,
like we play California again on June 19th. Is that
Yeah.
the next one we play? Yeah, that's the next one. So
and then I will put this out there. I'm looking at going to Denver in July. We play twice in Denver. One of those games being against Denver. So any of the Arrowhead faithful want to meet us out there, we'll go and boo Brendan O'Neill in Denver.
Let's get
So-
loud.
that'd be awesome.
Take our vuvuzelas and boo him. So, all right, folks. Toast, Brady, any last thoughts from you guys?
Nothing me. Go Archers.
Yeah, go Archers. Above all else, win. Let's go win. Let's go.
Above all else, win. All right, gents, appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for your patience with us and our schedules, and we'll try and get a little more regular here and give you some more updates. But yeah, go Archers. Thanks everyone. This podcast is not affiliated with the Premier Lacrosse League or Archers Lacrosse Club. This is an independent, fan-run podcast.
The arrowhead we aim, we fly through the chaos, cut in the sky. Hit the mark, we never miss. The closest